man, I have never been this excited to make a review before. Until today. So, first off, I'll just get this off my chest. I'm not the biggest Studio Ghibli fan. Well, I mean, I wasn't the biggest Studio Ghibli fan, because growing up, I never actually got a chance to watch anything Miyazaki or Ghibli related. My autistic brain was basically too busy watching Cars on repeat 24/7 whilst also begging my parents to buy every single piece of car merch that they could find at a Walmart. Let's just say my standards of cinema back then were not all that high at all. So, unfortunately, that meant that I never actually got a chance to see a Miyazaki movie. Until 2 years ago, where I decided to watch Spirited Away for the first time, and wow, were you guys not kidding about the hype for this movie. From its beautiful art style, wonderful storytelling, memorable characters, it has it all. It has basically everything you could want in an animated movie. Well, at least I thought so anyway. Unfortunately, after that, I didn't go on to watch another movie from the great Hayao Miyazaki until very recently. In preparation for The Boy and the Heron at the Chinese Theatre, I decided that I would want to at least watch a few more of his works to get a sense of vision into what Miyazaki puts into his movies. Those films include Kiki's Delivery Service, My Neighbor Totoro, and Princess Mononoke. And you know what, man? I wasn't raised right as a kid. You know, I love Pixar movies and all that, but that shit is mid compared to the level of effort put into the animation and story that these movies bring out. It's really no wonder why so many people classify these films as classics because, well, they are. I don't really know what else to say other than Miyazaki might as well be a god at making these stories come to life. While Kiki wasn't the best film that I've happened to come across, in fact, it's the only one I would consider to be a 9 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10 for all these other movies, it's still pretty fantastic. This and Totoro, despite having the most simple premise and plot for an animated movie I've ever seen, still end up feeling really impactful and wonderful to watch because it brilliantly sucks you into this world with these characters, almost as if you're along for the ride with them. And there's no big twist or fight that happens in between, no, it's just wholesome, clean fun, which honestly just made me wish more of these type of movies existed. And that's not to say that no other movie should take turns or risks with its story, no, not at all. In fact, that's one of the main highlights for me when I watched Princess Mononoke. It's just that as a whole, a lot of animated movies nowadays tend to stick to this really basic formula where you first introduce the characters and you set up the story and then the characters trying to go with the story until eventually a conflict happens in the middle, so now everything changes all of a sudden. But by the end, everything turns out to be okay, so yay, happy ending. Again, it's not that I necessarily have a problem with this structure, it's just that Kiki and Totoro made me really feel the need to have a movie where it just goes from point A to point B, and that's it. But I feel like some say that might be too boring and it might not be something that everyone will love. But if you're asking me, these two movies are proof that it can in fact be done. On the other hand, however, Princess Mononoke proves that Miyazaki can very well tackle more complex, story-driven films just as well as he could from his more simpler films. And in a way, Mononoke actually feels like a diss of sorts to those other movies, because it also shows that you can innovate with the structure that a lot of animated movies like to use. You have a guy who basically gets cursed after fighting a demon, and now he is told that he's pretty much about to die unless he visits a forest spirit. And during his trip, he meets Mononoke and befriends a village. But the village is trying to go after the forest spirits, so now this dude must basically find a way for the forest creatures and humans to be at peace. It sounds complicated, but that's probably because I'm shit at explaining movies anyway. But it is so well executed, and it's easily one of the best written animated movies I've ever seen. End of story. So anyways, you guys get the point. I think Miyazaki is a really excellent filmmaker, and it's no surprise why he's considered the GOAT of animated cinema. So that puts us to today. Arguably one of, if not the most anticipated animated movie of the year next to Across the Spider-Verse. The Boy and the Heron. And I was lucky enough to see it about 2 months in advance before its release in America. Was it worth it? Before I tell you, I just want to let y'all know if you're enjoying this so far and want to see me make more videos where I review movies like this, please like and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an upload. It would help me out a lot, especially since I'm starting off small. So anyways, where was I? Oh yeah, well, let me just have this video do the talking.
That was awesome. So good.
Well, I mean, what did you expect? This to be Miyazaki's Earwig and the Witch? Hell no! I mean, I guess the first thing I should say about it is that I really appreciate the marketing for this movie, not trying to reveal much of anything because it is a very story-heavy film. which is not to say that it's using its visuals in a way to give some kind of big, spectacular, epic action sequence throughout the course of the movie. Because while it certainly does use it a lot creatively to get the story going, surprisingly, it turned out to be fairly mellow in terms of its mood and story. Like, don't let that PG-13 rating fool you. It's pretty mature, but not as hardcore as, say, Princess Mononoke. For most of the movie anyway. Then again, I feel like as a whole, the movie would definitely work best for those who especially grew up on his films as a whole. Since, again, while I haven't actually grown up on his movies before, it's very clear to me that this was not just your typical magical fantasy film that so many people have come to associate with him or even Studio Ghibli. It's very different in the sense that it takes its time with what it seems like a simple story about a little boy finding out what really happened to his mother after she passed. Not really a spoiler, by the way, that is established in the first 5 minutes of the film. Then turns out to be this big mesh of playing around with other ideas and tropes that, to be honest, I was not expecting. If I could describe it briefly, I would say this is like Spirited Away if it was taking place inside the mind of Miyazaki. And like Spirited Away, it also likes to make us get familiar to the characters that we'll end up seeing throughout the film. Especially the Heron, which, I'm gonna be honest, I was not particularly the biggest fan of him. I didn't dislike him whatsoever, but he felt very, let's just say, chaotic neutral. And I think he even mentions it outright to the film that he'd rather leave Mahito, the boy, to do his own adventure because he sees it more as taking orders from his master, which is a Chicken King. I don't actually have a picture of him, so I'm just gonna use this pic of this dude from Toy Story 2 instead. Anyways, that brings me to one of my few criticisms about the film. I think it's a little too silly. For a movie that is literally about a boy who's trying to search for answers in his family after her own mother dies in a hospital explosion in an era where World War II was still on and raging. Yeah, some parts of the film definitely felt a little too hard-lighted that ended up straying away from certain aspects of the movie I wanted to pay attention to. Then again, these moments were pretty funny all around, and you could also make the argument that this could just be the movie's way of telling us how Mahito is trying to cope with the situation he's in. Since you can tell that he continues to remain visibly distraught and anxious throughout the journey in this movie, almost as if he is unsure of what he is trying to accomplish, and if that is what the movie was intending to do in the first place, then bravo, 10 out of 10 writing right there. Like, genuinely speaking. Again, forgive me if it seems like I don't know jack shit about Miyazaki's writing motivations, because I really have only seen 5 of his movies before, okay? So leave me alone, bro. But in all seriousness, I honestly don't want to give too much details out about this movie away, and it's not just because it's one of those movies where you have to watch it for yourself in order to truly understand and appreciate it, but also because I only started writing this review an hour after I finished watching the movie, and I'm still having to process a lot about what I just saw. It really is just one of those movies where you just have to sit down and really take in what goes on in order to fully appreciate Miyazaki's work. That being said though, I would also be lying if I said that this was the greatest film in the world. So unfortunately, it wasn't as good as I was hoping it to be. And so, out of the 4 that I've already seen from his collection, if I had to put this movie somewhere in here, I'd put it in dead last. But wait. Before you click that dislike button and spam hate comments down there, guys, it's still a Miyazaki movie. I mean, even if there were some faults about it here and there, who cares? I can't truly not like it. For one, the animation is beautiful and magical as hell. It has very memorable characters that I feel like are going to be iconic as soon as this film comes out in America. And while some of it might feel weird, a little confusing, or even sometimes a little too drawn out, it's still a Miyazaki film. And a pretty damn good one at that. I'm giving The Boy and the Heron a 9 out of 10. Don't take all that I've said at face value, because you might just end up having as good, if not even better of a time with this movie than I did. Especially if you've really grown up with all these movies. It will not disappoint. Also, never trust parakeets. So are you guys planning to check out Boy and the Heron? Should I make a more detailed video about it after the movie is out? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to like and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a video. Peace.